Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation, clarifying all the important points and aspects of cybersecurity, all the important commands you need to know about, so that it doesn't look very odd or very new when I try to explain. So yeah, so let's get into it. So I'm going to start my Kali Linux here. I got the latest version installed. Am I audible? Yes. So let's quickly start our machine. So today we're going to be doing like two practicals. The first one would be about Zfisher. As Ella already explained, it's an automated phishing tool that we'll be using for advanced social media credential phishing. So it's available on GitHub for cloning purposes. So GitHub is like a code repository where software and their programs and codes are stored. We can clone them, we can fork them, we can take them and manipulate them into an application that we want. So right now we'll just be cloning this Zfisher. Let me log in into my system. So the reason why the first part I chose like Zfisher to explain is because how popular phishing activities are and how much they contribute to hacking activities. So phishing attacks are the most commonly known attacks and the most common ways that attackers use to hack into or like gain access to a victim system. So I wanted to demonstrate how it happens so that you can all understand how a phishing activity or phishing attack works. So for that, let us actually do some basic navigation. So where are we right now? So this is my Kali Linux. This is my Kali Linux terminal. As she already said, this is the terminal interface which we can use to navigate inside the system. And there are two ways, right? There's a terminal interface and there's a GUI. GUI is like a graphical user interface where like you can just click on these icons and it takes you there. So I can go to the documents and I'm in documents, so like that. So you can also do the same thing from here. So I can see what is there here. So I have documents. I can go to documents, CD documents, and I can go to documents. So right now we'll just, what we'll do is just go to try to clone Zfisher. So let me see if it's already cloned. I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is like we're gonna clone Zfisher. So to do that, I'll just go into a browser, search for Zfisher, and whatever, this is the first link that you see, it's from GitHub. It's where it's available. You click on it, then you basically click on code and copy this URL. So now what you can do is go to Kali Linux terminal. Let me expand this for you. And there's this command called git clone and you enter the URL. So I hope the screen is big enough. So I'm going to run a very basic command. It's to clone that repository. So it's git and clone and that URL. So I'm going to enter and it's going to start cloning it. So it's basically like going to download and clone that application so that you can run it. So once that's done, we can see what is there in our system. So now you see in our directories or folders are called as directories, we have Zfisher. So now what we'll do is we're going to go into zfisher cd. Cd is like change directory. Let's go into zfisher and let's see ls to see what is inside. So we have a Docker file, the license file, and then readme, run Docker, and then scripts and some, and this is what we need, the bash shell. Since it's a bash shell, I'm going to run bash zfisher.sh. So now it's going to start running that zfisher application. Yeah. So basically, zfisher is like a phishing simulation. It's a very user-friendly and very hassle-free way of simulating a phishing attack. So you don't have to run a lot of technical commands. You just have to know the basics of basics. So right now, what is it asking? It's a tool created by HDR Tech. Select an attack for your victim. So it is giving us all these 35 options from which we can select any one of these, and then that is the application that we'll use to that would be the phishing URL. So just for today's purpose, let us go with Spotify. Spotify, you know, Spotify is a music app. I'm going to give the number for Spotify. Spotify is at 18. So I'm going to just select the option 18 and then hit enter. It's going to ask me to select a port forwarding service. I'm going to select 02, which is Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is so I don't want a custom port. So Cloudflare is like the latest port forwarding service, so it's faster and less buggy, so we're going to use that. So once it initializes their server, it generates us a few phishing links to try. So we have a few phishing links. So these are our phishing links that we can use to try to victimize an individual. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this URL. All right, I'm just going to go into the browser. So I'm just going to paste it here. So there you see, it's a page that's looking like a genuine Spotify login page, isn't it? So, but here's the trick. As soon as somebody is on this page, what is happening inside our terminal is it found the victim's IP. It says victim's IP found, and it is saving in auth/ip.txt. So it's saving in the auth folder, auth directory, and saving with the file name ip.txt. It's saving the information. And let's see what happens when I try to give my credentials. Email address, I'm just going to give like Jenny. And password, I'm going to give like maybe Jenny123, something like that. And let's see what is happening when I log in. Oh, password reset. It's asking me to reset my password and all, but what is happening inside our terminal is account Jenny, password Jenny123, saved in auth/usernames.dat data file. You see how easy it is? And if you look at the URL, I don't know if you can see it, but it's https://accounts.spotify.com password reset. This looks like a very authentic, very legitimate website. It's even HTTPS, which is like the secured version of secured HTTP. It's like HTTP is unsecure protocol. HTTPS is a secure protocol. So there is no way that someone could even think or guess that this could actually be a malicious URL. This could be like a phishing URL that he or she by mistakenly clicked onto, and once they try to log in with their credentials, boom, they're like, the attacker has them. Now what the attacker is going to do. So the first stage of the phishing, once the attacker phishes into the victim's credentials, now what he or she is going to do is something called identity theft. So you must have noticed this with your friends or maybe some of your relatives' Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts. First of all, they get into some kind of phishing link and their credentials are compromised. So the attacker gains access to them, and now they have their login details. They're going to log into the Instagram account, let's say, and they're going to change the password, and they're going to start sending these spam messages saying, hey, I invested in so and so application and I have so much profit. I got so much profit. I'm rich now. You should also invest. And what people do is people think easy money is their dream. So everyone would just go into the link and just invest their money, and boom, the money is gone. So this is what the attacker does. First of all, he's gonna try to look like it is a real URL and not malicious. He's gonna use these phishing attacks. He's gonna gain access. He's gonna do identity theft. He's gonna steal your identity and act like you and disguise like a legitimate person, and then not only victimize the already victim, but also like try to victimize others through their account. So this is how dangerous phishing attacks are and how they actually work. So it's very easy for them to gain your credentials. So what I would suggest is, if you find anything that looks malicious or suspicious, if you suspect anything, any URL or any link to be malicious in nature, do not click it blindly. Be suspicious, have your suspicions up, and try to determine if it is indeed malicious or not. Only then, if you only trust that URL or a link, only then proceed to click on it. So this is our practical one. It is a very short demonstration of how phishing attacks work. Now, so let's all take a break and breathe. So quickly gonna exit out of this. Let us go towards our next practical, which is, yes?
Jennifer?
Yeah.
I think maybe some people might have questions on what we have just demonstrated, or maybe the theoretical part that you did in the first place. So if anyone has a question, the next 5 minutes, please ask the questions.
Yes, any questions about the practical that you just saw, phishing attack?
No questions? All right, I have one. While you were presenting, the Spotify site really looked real. All right, like not everyone would actually know that it's a scam. All right, how
Yes.
best can you advise people not to fall into such trap? How can someone know that this is literally not a Spotify site?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for the question. So first of all, since I'm also a cyber SOC analyst, we have like tons of exercises even within our organization on how to prevent phishing attacks and how to differentiate between a real URL or a link and a malicious URL. So the first thing that you can use to differentiate between a real and a malicious URL is the spellings in the URL. So if you look at the URL before you click on them, for example, if you hover over a link, so basically it will show you what the actual URL it is. So when you hover over, when you take your mouse, if you're on a mouse, if you're on a system, if you take your mouse over a URL, it's gonna show what link it is going to take you into, not the link that it is masking or not the link that is masked with or disguised with, but the link that is actually taking you into. So that is number one. The second thing is the spelling. So maybe there would be spelling mistakes, like instead of Google, the spelling would be Googel. So that is another thing, because there cannot be two URLs with the same link. So the same naming convention. So it's some or the other difference. Maybe here, somewhere there would be some kind of mistake in the spelling. Or number one is when you hover over it and you find it is not the same URL that is written. Number two is a spelling mistake. Number three, try to identify the source of it. So where is it coming from? Who sent that message to you? Who sent that link to you? Do you know that person? Do you trust that person? Do you does If you're asking the person who sent, does he or she know who sent it to him or her? So if you're just finding a link out of the blue, just don't click it out of excitement. Try to identify the source of that URL. and and number four, if it's especially something that is promising you some dreamy gift or some free money or something, then I would say if you're going for something free, you're gonna pay twice or thrice the money or the amount for that. So never fall for these traps when they're promising you something for free. If they say, oh, get 1 year of Spotify membership, click on this link, get 1 year of Spotify membership. Do not. Nobody is going to give you 1 year of Spotify membership if you haven't done anything to earn it. Ask yourself, what did I do to earn it? Why is somebody giving it, handing it over to me? So when it comes to protecting yourself against an attacker, it's your conscience that has to speak first. So your conscience has to be clear. You have to be aware of what is going on around you, aware of the common ways that people are being attacked by. So I think if Ella has something to add, she can add. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Yeah, so guys, Jennifer is very much right. And another tip that I would give is, especially, I know that it's not always going to be famous platforms such as Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. Sometimes it's also these job boards. It's gonna be, oh, UNICEF is recruiting people. You can register here. You should keep note of the design of these pages. They're usually the same. And in most cases, as Jennifer talked of, the spellings are usually wrong, but I'm not saying that they're always going to be wrong. And another thing you should pay attention to is most attackers at the bottom of their pages write down fake comments. Oh, too good to be true. I got my phone. Too good to be true. I got my job. And there's always a countdown to say this offer lasts for, let's say, 24 hours. So let's say you do click on the link. Let's say you forgot and did click on the link. Scroll to the bottom of the page. That is especially for these job boards. The counter. Try and refresh that page or whatever. You're going to find that the counter restarts. So every time you click on the link, it restarts. So that's only in the yeah, so it does happen in most cases where you really do trust this person, but you should know that just because you trust them does not mean that they can't send you malicious link. So first thing is trust your gut. Some things are just too good to be true, and I don't think
Hello, Ella. Are you still there? Jennifer, I think she's gone.
All right, no problem. We will continue with the second part of the practical.
Before you continue, we have someone who wants to
Yeah,
ask a question. Yeah, Precious?
sure. Yeah, sure.
Precious, you have a question? Mr. Precious Manyoni, do you have a question?
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, my question is on the theoretical part. On the ethical hacking tools, I think there was one tool, Nmap, which is open source. I was just interested to know if there are any advantages of using open source tools.
Yeah. So the advantages of using open source tools is because they have a large community of users who are constantly working towards them, and they're constantly developing new stuff. And these are all freely available for everyone to see and freely available for anybody to contribute. So I guess that is one of the most important advantages of using open source tools when compared to paid tools and expensive ones that not everyone could afford. Because when it comes to cybersecurity, I believe it's learning for your whole lifetime. You keep on learning, you keep on learning. So if there's a community, if there's a large community of developers or hackers that you can interact with and learn together and grow together, I think that would definitely be a beneficial outcome from that. So that is why open source softwares or open source tools, open source products are encouraged to be used, because we can all each contribute to the society little by little.
Precious, I hope that answers your question, right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So Jennifer, you can continue.
All right. So if nobody has any more doubts, we can continue. And if you still have any more doubts left, we could, I think, leave it for the end of the session. Then we can clear all the doubts. So for the next part of this practical, we are going to work on the phases of ethical hacking that Ella already talked about. So I believe she already explained all the five stages of ethical hacking, right? From reconnaissance to analysis. So today we'll try to exploit a remote machine that is available hosted on this virtual box. So the remote machine that we'll be using, give me a second. Let me start them. I'm gonna close it. So the first machine, the target machine that we'll be trying to hack into is this machine called CSEC, cybersecurity. That's what it stands for. So it's like, again, coming to open source. So this was, again, kind of an open source machine that a cybersecurity student created, and he hosted on this vulnerable hub. It's like a vulnerability hub where he posted this machine for free. We can just use it to hack into it for free. So even hacking into this machine is like not that hard. It follows all the rules, and it follows the structure and flow of how all the phases of ethical hacking, or the phases of a kill chain. And it's not very overwhelming for a beginner to hacking. So I think this is like a very beginner friendly as well as a full-fledged hacking machine that we can all hack into today. So as you can see, it's also an Ubuntu OS, and the username is provided. The username is Marlin Spike, and we don't have a password. So I'm trying to just guess some passwords and enter. So it says invalid password, please try again. So we don't know the password of this machine. However, using Kali Linux and its powerful tools, we are going to identify what this machine is and hack into this machine using all the tools that Ella has already briefed about. So let's start our Kali Linux. It's going to take some time. Also, before you run, just letting you know that we're placing both the machines in the same network. So I went to settings, the network, and then placed it both in the same bridged adapter settings. I gave them both the same settings. So that system, that target machine is recognizable on our network. So let me give the password. All right. So let's open our command prompt or terminal. So if you all remember, what is the first stage of the ethical hacking? What's the first phase, or what is the first step of a cyberkill chain? It's reconnaissance. So are our objectives clear? Our objective is to just hack into the target host that is on our network. That is the CSEC machine that is running. This is the machine that is running. Probably we'll also, if possible, we'll try to gain some kind of privileged access, like a root access or something, like an admin access. So we just want to gain access, and that machine is also very big enough objective to gain access to it. And how can we hack into it? So study the ways that we can hack into it and learn how cyberkill chain or the phases of ethical hacking actually work. So it's probably going to take 20 to 30 minutes and we'll be done. So let's begin by doing a reconnaissance. So to do a reconnaissance, we have a net discover command. So it basically, I think net discover was already explained by Ella. So it discovers whatever IPs or hosts are available in our network. It's like a network discovery. So it requires root access to run. So I'm just gonna go with sudo net discover. It asks for the password because it requires user root access to run. So let's see what all IPs are available and up and running. Please bear with me. It's going to take some time to run these commands because if it's trying to discover the IPs that are available, it's going to take some amount of time to do it. So as you can see, we can see 3 IPs with .29. So if you already attended the, I guess, networking webinar that was, I think, 2 webinars ago in Tech It Up, so you must have learned about how IP addresses work and how classing is done. So this 192.168.29.1. So this is a class C IP address. So it has 3 network bits and 1 host bit. So this the last part of this IP would be the host. So these are all in the same host. So let's exit out of it and run ifconfig command. As I already explained, ipconfig is the one that we use to discover or learn about our IP in Windows command prompt. And in Kali Linux, we use ifconfig. So as you can see, this is our IP address, which is our IP address, like this Kali Linux IP address, 192.168.29.218. And if you look carefully at these numbers, the host that is very close to this IP, probably 2 or 3 hosts behind, is this IP. This dot 220, 218 and 220 are very close, probably. So PC, so it's probably the IP that we're looking for. So let us try to run a few commands to look into it if that is our attacker IP or not. So now we can run a scanning command. So some of the scanning commands you may or may not remember are nmap, network mapper, and rustscan. So I'm going to run a rustscan. So rustscan command, this is how it looks like. Rust scan -a for aggressive, and you enter the IP. So this is our IP. So I'm going to enter 220, which is probably the target that we're looking for. So rustscan -a and the IP address. So that is the command line. So you see how quickly that gave me some results. Rustscan, the modern day port scanner. So real hackers hack time. So the faster you can hack into a system, the better. The faster you can find the vulnerabilities, the better. And the faster you can explain them to your client. So you can see here there are 3 open ports on this IP. There's 21, 22, and 80. So these ports use different services. If you come down and see here, 21, port 21 uses FTP. So what is FTP? FTP is like a file transfer protocol. And port 22 uses SSH, which is a secure shell. It's also another protocol that is used for, also another service that is used for remote connection. And port 80, which is HTTP, your basic web page. So one IP is up, one host is up, scanned in 0.07 seconds. How fast is that? Really fast. Faster than Nmap. So we do understand from this that there are 3 open ports available. So what can we do about this? So we can proceed with Nmap. But before we do proceed with Nmap, I would also like to show you some of the other commands that we can use to learn more about whatever is inside this particular IPO host. So as Ella already explained, we would also try to use some command or tool called GoBuster. So GoBuster is used to enumerate hidden directories and files using brute forcing. As she already mentioned what brute forcing is. Brute forcing is like checking against various other kinds of very commonly used naming conventions, so that you may end up finding something with that naming convention inside the inside this IP. So there's like a list of directories available which uses this word list available where you have commonly available text that it will check against this IP for. So let's see what GoBuster will return. So okay. Oops, this is not our IP. Since I already ran the commands previously, it's recognizing them. So manually, if you're running these commands for the first time, you would manually have to type in GoBuster space dir for directory, -u for the IP and or the username, -w for the word lists that you want to check with. So commonly available text. So now it's going to return some results. So what results did it return? Let's see. So there are some results. .htaccess, .htpassword, .hta, .index.html, and /secret. You look at the secret. If you go into this, there is some web page or something like that available. What I will do is, so you should commonly look out for something with /secret, /robos.txt. These are very commonly used directories where people store passwords and stuff like that. So let's try to paste that link and see where it takes us. Oh, My secret block. Just another WordPress site. So if a website is made of WordPress, you know that it is at the end, like a footnote, it is written proudly powered by WordPress. So that is something you can look out for, because if it is made up of WordPress, there is a WordPress command that you can use to enumerate and look more into what is stored inside it. Also, another common practice that you should do is like right click and you page source. So this is like the source code for the web page. So what you should look out for in the source code is some kind of comment that says something about, okay, hey, this is the password. So this is like, welcome to WordPress, this is your first post. Site branding text. Sometimes somewhere you should like control F and try to look for a password, or like an admin or something that says, okay, these are the credentials or something like that. So basically you'll have to go through all this source code. Sometimes you may end up finding something interesting. So right now it doesn't seem very interesting. We can just close this and just go to our terminal. Let us see if there is something we can find using a WordPress scan, as I mentioned. So this is how the command is. Enter WP scan -- URL, and you basically have to paste the URL that you want to enumerate. So the scan started. Let's see what it finds. So these are some interesting findings. As you can see, it's a WordPress scan, ethical hacker. So there are some notations. Headers, 100% confidence, the versions that it's using, some README files, aggressive detection, no plugins found, no config backups found. Nothing is found. So it looks like this is again a neat scan with no results yet. I'd also like to mention some noteworthy commands like nicto and all. But so now we'll just basically get back to our very old network mapper since we did not find useful results yet. So we'll just run an nmap scan. An nmap scan, I'm using the extensions -sc for the default scripts and -sv for the default versions and -pn to skip the host discovery. So and we have to enter our target IP. Let's run and see what result it gives us. So nmap, as I said, is a little slower compared to Rust scan. Okay, but it really gave us quick results. Let's see. So port 21, there is open FTP, we already know, but now compared to a Rust scan, it also gave us, because we gave the version, we mentioned to specify the version, so it has given us the versions as well. Pro FTPD version, that's what this FTP is using. This SSH is using this open SSH 7.2 P2 and TCP Apache HTTPD version. So now what we are going to do is try to see if these versions have any kind of vulnerabilities. So how do we check that? So we completed reconnaissance using the network discovery. We can also use recon-ng to do this reconnaissance. We completed the scanning activities using nmap and rustscan. Now we're going to try to do the third phase, which is the exploitation. So to check for vulnerabilities, of course, there are so many ways you can check for vulnerabilities and CVEs. There are so many ways. So I'm just here explaining one of the ways through which you can do this. So a very commonly used way to search for the exploit available inside the system is search exploit. So what I'm going to do is just enter search exploit and this thing. I copied this thing and pasted it here. All right. So what it's going to do is it will search for any kind of vulnerabilities that could be exploited for this particular version. Yeah. So as you can see here, exploit, title and path. So this has 2 vulnerabilities that could be exploited, 2 exploits. There's a backdoor command execution that you can implement using a Metasploit framework, right? And compromised source backdoor remote code execution. So what is this backdoor? Imagine you're in a house and your house has 2 doors. There's a front door and a back door. Through which door would you expect a thief to barge into your house? Obviously, he's not gonna come and walk in through the front door and say hi. If he's coming to steal something, if he's coming to come maliciously, he's gonna try to come from the back door. So backdoor command execution, backdoors are these malicious codes that sit behind original source codes, and these are the pathways through which we can exploit a system. So this is called backdoor command execution, and we can commonly use Metasploit framework to achieve this. So how do we do this? So for us to enable Metasploit framework console to open, we have to run the command msf console. So what this does is it opens the Metasploit framework console, starting the Metasploit framework console. So let's wait. Okay, it seems like it's up and running. So what we can do right now is search for the vulnerability again, the ProFTPD, and it's going to give us some results. As you can see here. So there are a few 5 ways through which we can execute this. So from here though, what you have to focus on first is the ranking. So when you're trying to use Metasploit, try to choose an exploit with excellent ranking. What it means is this particular exploit runs better, gives better results. And among these 2, I'm going to use this backdoor command execution. If you look at the date it was disclosed, it was back in 2010 when this was found to be a vulnerability or an exploit that people could exploit and gain access or entry into an attack, a victim system or a target system. So what I'm going to do is, it's very simple. You just have to use the command use and then input the number for that. So it's from 0 to 5. I'm going to use this one, the backdoor command execution, and I'm going to be like use 5. Use that exploit. Okay, now that exploit is used. So now what we have to do is configure this. So configure this exploit. So we're going to go with options. So what options do we have to configure? So we're going to fill in some blank details. For example, there are 3 things we need to do. First is to set the R hosts, which is the remote host, which is the target host. As you can see here, the target host, we need to set which is the target IP that we are trying to target and attack. So let us do that first. So set, this is how you do it, and write it exactly as it is, R host with all the capitals, R hosts, and the target IP. So the target IP is 192.168.29.220. So let's enter, and it's set. The second thing that you have to set is the payload that you'll be using to execute this. So I'm gonna quickly use the command show payloads to see the available payloads that we can use. Okay, there are quite a few, but this is the one we need, the payload CMD Unix reverse. So this is the one we need, the third one. So just like previously, set payload capital and 3. Payload is set. The third thing you need to configure is the local host. So if you go back to options now, you will see that the payload is set, our host is set, our L port, which is the local port, is 444, and the L host is empty here. So we're going to set the L host. So here we're going to say set L host and give our IP address, the local IP address that we're using, 92.168.29.218. So this is our local IP address. So we set the L host. So everything is set. Now there's only one thing left to do, to exploit. So let's do that. Exploit. So now you can just sit back and relax while it exploits the machine for you. Sending a backdoor command, matching, reading the sockets, command shell session 1 opened between these. So let's see where we are. So to understand who you are, the command is who am I? As you can see, we are the root. So this means that we successfully gained access into the target's system. But as you can see, this doesn't look all fancy. What basically it means is it's a low privilege access. So you don't see any interactivity in this. So what now we have to do is something called privilege escalation. Actually, now we are going to go with enriching this interface. So now we're going to use something called Python interactive shell to upgrade the simple reverse shell to something more interactive. So there is a command to do this. There's a Python 3 command that you can use to import a Python TTY shell to make this a little bit more interactive for you. So if I first do ID and check where I am, I have the root access. Fine. So the command that I'll be using to convert this into a little bit more interactive in nature is Python 3 C import so basically it spawns a interactive Python shell. Okay. All right, so that looks more interactive. That looks better. You can now see where you are. So it's like root at VTCSec. Right, root at virtual terminal cybersecurity. That's what basically it is. So now if I do PWE slash is the root ls, there are some things that are available inside. So now what I'll do is, since I did ls, I can see the list of directories that are available for me. So bin, dev, opt, run, user, boot, etc, 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 root and all. So what is important when you gain inside a root access to a system is something to fetch called etc. So slash etc, inside etc directory, there's another directory called shadow, which contains a list of all the shadow is like a password file and the system file where encrypted passwords are stored, and they're only accessible to the root user. So who is the root user? Like the admin user. So only accessible to the root user. Now that you have the root access, what you can do is you can read that file. And how do you read files? You use the cat command. cat also stands for concatenate, is used to read files. So cat /etc/shadow, and you have like list of encrypted passwords. But what is interesting here to us is this Marlin spike, this one. What I'll do is I'm just gonna copy this and I'll just go open another terminal. We are in home. I'm gonna give like a new file name, and I'll paste it inside this hash new file .txt. It's a text file. Scat is a command again you can run to either create an empty file, and then when you do enter you can paste your whatever hash value is to this. And now what you can do is you can use a tool called John the Ripper to crack this hash. So John the Ripper is another Kali Linux tool for cracking these password hashes. So we're just going to use John and just this hash new file. Yeah. So since I've already cracked this password file previously, now it's showing as nothing, but usually it shows. So in order to show the password file so it's already cracked it. So it says here it's a SHA-512 crypt. So it uses this SHA algorithm, secure hashing algorithm. That's what it stands for. So in order to see what it is, the command is John -- show whatever it cracked. As you see here, it's Marlin spike and Marlin spike. So this is our user and this is our password. One password cracked. So this is how you crack into the system. Now what do we do? Now what we do is, now there are two things that we can do. Since we already have the password, we can go directly into the system, this target machine, and enter Marlin spike to check. But that's the easiest way of doing it. Oftentimes we don't have access to a target's system. All we have access to is the network in which they are in. So since we can't physically always access a target system, what we can actually use is, now that we do have a potential password, we can use SSH for remote connectivity and run it. So in the other file that's already opened, what I'll do is I'll just use SSH, and the command that you use is like username at IP. SSH username at IP, and if you have the password, then it's good. So it's gonna ask you for the password. Let me try Marlin spike. There you go. Last login. It's giving you time to, it's giving you details, it's giving you this very interactive interface. It's saying Marlin spike at VTC sec. So who am I? Marlin spike. PWD, print working directory, home. We're inside the home of Marlin spike. So we are now accessing everything that is there inside the target's machine without actually going into the target machine. So now this is user access. So now we have access to the user, which is Marlin spike. But can we also access the root here? Let us check. So to access the root, we can run a command called sudo su. Sudo is super user do, su is switch user. So it's asking for the password again. Wow. And there you are, root add vt csec home Marlin Spike. So who am I? Root. pwd and ls. Let's see what is inside root. Inside root you have this backdoor vulnerability, this desktop documents downloads, XYZ, so many other, the WordPress folder, the WordPress that they're using to run the website or the site on the application, and so many other things. Now that you have complete access into the target's IP. So this is how you escalate. This is privilege escalation. And if I had to do it directly from here, now that I did get the password, Marlin Spike C, and there you are inside the system. I can just go here, go to terminal, and try to run the same commands here. It's gonna give me the same result. pwd ls, what is inside the user, who am I, Marlin Spike, sudo su. Let me try to gain the root access, ask for a password. Then who am I? Root. So now this is us physically accessing the target system, and this is us trying to virtually access the target system, remote access the target system. So as you can see, we have successfully gained access into a target system or another host that is within the same network. So this is how you find out the vulnerabilities. This is how you exploit a machine. So this is the full-fledged machine exploitation practical. So all the commands that I used in this practical are available in a document file, which we will upload shortly at the end of the webinar, so that you can go through them, run them, look at them, and learn from them. So this was all about cybersecurity, ethical hacking, how to practically implement it. Now, as an ethical hacker, once you do hack into someone's a target IP, which is actually your client systems, you will find vulnerabilities like backdoor executions if there are any available. So you have to make analysis of all of these and make sure that you inform your client about all these vulnerabilities. So once they do get to know about the vulnerabilities, they can focus on fixing them. All right. So that's it about, is Ella there?
Yes, I'm here, Jennifer.
Yeah. Also about the various roles available in cybersecurity. You can work as a penetration tester, as a red team, in the red team, for the red team activities, as a SOC analyst, the blue team, or the cyber defense. You can work as a cyber forensic expert. So you will be dealing with cyber forensics, and there are so many job opportunities and roles available in cybersecurity. If you're more interested, you should further research and chase your passions. Thank you for having us. I'll hand it over to Ella, I guess, to give the finishing touches.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, just to add on a little something. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the presentation, and I'm sure everybody has understood. It was such a beautiful practical. So just to add on, in case you're wondering, Jennifer was logged into the Kali Linux, and then when we're doing the practical, she was logged into that other machine that we're trying to gain access to. where we did our practical basically, and she logged into Kali Purple. So Jennifer is works as a SOC analyst, which is she basically works for like a security center. So what happens is we have different teams and organizations. We have the purple team, the blue team, and the red team. So Kali Purple was basically designed for the purple and the blue team, which are the teams that are into defensive security. So the red team in an organization, in case some of you ever consider setting up teams of cybersecurity specialists in your companies or organizations, you have to know that you can have 3 teams. The red team is responsible for offensive attacks, where they attack systems, so these can use the Kali Linux version, while the ones that are into defensive security can use the Kali Purple, which has extra tools. It has over 100 tools that you can use to protect your companies and organizations. And the purple team just basically brings both the red team and the blue team together so that they provide security for the organization. And on the roles that she mentioned in the end, you can also, apart from being a pen tester or an ethical hacker, you can become a SOC analyst like Jennifer. So she stated that she's on the blue team, so which means they're into defensive security. They make sure that they monitor the networks and they ensure that everything is up and running. Basically, incident responding.
Then there's also a cyber threat intelligence team or a CTI team that focuses on threat hunting. So they will continuously look out for any threats that are emerging, the new ways attackers are trying to attack. So they're going to be focusing on that. Cyber forensics as well. There are so many roles available in cybersecurity. It's all left for you to explore.